repeatedly saying that he was dying.
The social media star now accused of murdering her boyfriend.
Sessler admitted to committing several crimes.
It was there that he hit her 4 times in the chest, killing her instantly.
You are gone.
Most young people nowadays have people that they look up to online. It could be an online gamer, an Instagram model, or a YouTube star. This could be someone you admire and want to be like, someone you find attractive, or someone who creates content that makes you laugh. It's important that, especially the young and vulnerable, the people that they look up to online are good people. But we know that that isn't always the case. Some hurt others and make bad decisions. Some social media influencers even end up taking a life. The following stories tell the tale of 3 sadistic social media influencers who turned into killers. We have one young man who killed his entire family for seemingly no reason at all and was prepared to kill again. We also have an Instagram star who is accused of stabbing her longtime boyfriend to death. And finally, a man who believed in rebirth so strongly that he took his own life as well as others to experience it.
Hello everyone, I'm Mr. Anime, and boy, do I have a show for you.
This is just an update video to let you guys know that I'm going to reward myself with probably a 2 or 3 week break coming up here from YouTube videos, anime reviews in particular. I might do some blog stuff. I want to thank you guys a lot for sticking with me and watching the channel. I got more subscribers than ever. I have more views than ever, and everything is going really good. And I'll see you with some blog videos. Thanks for watching my channel.
The seemingly normal young man you just watched was a well-known YouTube star from the very early days of YouTube. The name he went by online was Mr. Anime, but his real name was Trey Selzer. Most of his content started out pretty lighthearted. In addition to reviewing anime, he made a lot of comedic skits. But as he continued to become more and more famous online, his content began to take a darker turn. Nevertheless, he had a lot of loyal subscribers and people who really looked up to him. They never thought that he would be capable of what would occur on the morning of March 20th, 2012. But first, let's take a step backward. Trey was born on August 3rd, 1989 to his parents, Rhonda and Lawton. He had one brother named Mark, who was 4 years older than him. The family lived a typical American life. Rhonda worked for the paper while Lawton was an elementary school teacher. They lived in a ranch-style home in Texas. While their family was once very happy and united, things started to go downhill when Trey ended up dropping out of college without finding a job first. He didn't seem to be worried about that fact and that he wasn't heading towards any sort of career. He referred to himself as a NEET, which stands for not employed, educated, or training. While this is often used as an insulting word, he seemed to use it proudly. Trey and his father used to argue frequently about the fact that he had no job, and he was known somewhat as an outcast by his family and neighbors.
I'll have to admit, he was quite strange. But naturally, I wasn't going to tell Trey's parents that he acts peculiar. His father was a very private person, and never really discussed him with me at all.
It was also known that Trey was on some sort of medication for a health condition, but what it was exactly wasn't clear. It wasn't until September 14th of 2006 that Trey first created his YouTube channel, LensCat Productions, and suddenly, Mr. Anime was born. Trey's life suddenly changed for the better. Not only did he have a new internet persona and people who looked up to him and admired his content, but he had online friends and people who connected with him. One thing that was different about Trey in comparison to other YouTubers at the time was that he was very grounded and real. He didn't try to put on any sort of front. He was just himself and kept things very casual, sometimes even snacking while he recorded a video about anime.
There it is, Evangelion.
And right off the bat, I gotta say that I really love the box it comes in. I mean, look at this. It's hard 10 individual DVDs. I mean, this is probably one of the best box covers I've ever seen.
It was only a matter of time before his channel grew an impressive following. He was a friend of the anime community who inspired others with a passion for this content to go on to create their own content. He was so well known at the time that even those who weren't interested in anime were still aware of who he was.
Now, some of you may say something like, you know, Mr. Anime, please, give any actor a break, you know? But no, if he'd have given me a break 100 goddamn episodes ago, it wouldn't be a problem. But the show keeps going, it's obnoxious, it gets annoying, Naraku never dies, in the movies he never dies, in the manga he's still not dead. What else is there to say?
Sometimes Trey's older brother Mark would help him come up with and produce his videos from behind the scenes. Trey would often refer to Mark as his best friend, and the two were known to be quite close.
Let me call you back.
One of the more controversial things that Trey suddenly began to cover was recent gun violence and the frequency of shootings across the United States.
Hey everybody, Season 2 here, and today I'm writing on something a little bit, right? Yes, I'm ranting on something a little bit anime unrelated. I'm ranting on all the shootings that have been happening. I'm a firearms owner myself, but it is a little bit disturbing to know that you could be a victim in something like this at these times. All the people that were victims, you think it won't happen to me, but sometimes it does. But seriously, every day I open Yahoo, I'm like, well, time to see what today's shooting is, and hey, there's another one. So I don't know when it's gonna stop.
From that point forward, Trey's videos became darker throughout the years. Some of his videos were a little bit bizarre, including this one featuring his brother Mark.
Show his feet. He fell in mud. It's funny. And there was a little girl who was trying to follow us, and she almost fell and broke her neck, and I would have filmed it and showed it to y'all, but then I would have helped. Not like most cameramen where they keep filming accidents and they don't help.
Some of Trey's fans began getting concerned around 2011 when they noticed that he seemed to have some sort of explanation for how all his family's pets kept going missing. What they couldn't have known at the time was that Trey was actually hurting the animals.
You are out of here. You are gone. Leave my place.
Around this time, local rumors were beginning to spread about Trey's behavior. Some people claimed to see him running at night, abusing alcohol, and animals with a gun during the darkness.
Whatever. Are you go home? Yeah, you're going home.
We can only imagine what he did to the defenseless creature after that point. On December 11th of 2011, Trey revealed to his viewers that he was suffering from a condition in which there was a hole in his lung that was leaking air. He seemed very concerned and asked his followers to pray for him. Most of the time, this condition is a result of trauma to the chest, but Trey never explained how this condition started for him. Then, in early March of 2012, Trey would upload one of his last videos. He was 22 years old at the time. The title of this video was incredibly sinister. It was, Mr. Anime is planning something. He explained to his followers that he was going to be able to post again for a while because he was going to be preoccupied with some other big project.
Well, hi everybody, it's Mr. Anime here, and I'm recording on my MacBook's web camera, and my MacBook's from like 4 years ago, so the web camera's not that great, so you'll have to bear with me.
He begins before telling his followers that he'll be taking a 2 or 3 week break from producing content. Later on, he would post another video in which he revealed that he had secured his dream job, a role in the film industry. However, it would turn out that this job was entirely made up. Looking back at the content Trey was posting around this time, his followers probably had no inkling of what was soon to become of his life. March 19th of 2012 would be the turning point in Trey's story. He had repeatedly been binge drinking for hours without taking any breaks. Early in the next morning, he called his mother Rhonda into the family's garage. It was there that he shot her 4 times in the chest, killing her instantly. All the while, the rest of the family slept upstairs. Now that Trey's evil plan was in action, he felt that he had to follow through with it, and he was prepared to wipe out his next victim. As he would later say in a private police confession, he felt he had no choice.
After I did that, it was like, well, I'm already committed, really.
Meanwhile, Trey's brother had woken up after hearing the gunshots and went downstairs to investigate. It was there that he came face to face with Trey, who shot him in the head. Trey's father, who was still in bed upstairs, heard the noise and called out to ask what was happening. Trey left his brother bleeding on the floor, but still alive, and went up to his parents' room where he shot his dad in the head twice, killing him. After that, Trey walked through the house to make sure everyone was dead. Mark, though gravely injured, had managed to drag himself into a bathroom and lock the door behind. Once Trey realized this, he broke down the door and found the person he had once described as being his very best friend, lying on the floor, bleeding out. He shot him again, this time killing him. How can someone be filled with so much rage that they were able to horrifically kill their own family? It's almost unthinkable.
The thing about my family is I would protect them with my life, but at the same time, if anyone was going to hurt them, it was going to be me.
After killing his entire family, Trey went absolutely berserk. He tore up his entire house and killed the rest of the family pets. He also began scrawling weird messages on the walls and cabinets, like this one that reads, "I will never forgive my state of mind. Never. No one will ever forgive me, not even me." And this one that says, "I will never forgive myself. I don't know why I did this. God help me." After that, Trey grabbed his rifle and fled the scene of the crime in his Ford Mustang. Meanwhile, neighbors had heard gunshots coming from the house and called the police. Some of the family's relatives had also called the police after they failed to answer the phone. Police arrived at the home later that day and were shocked by the state of it. They described it as a war zone. And starting then, a massive search began for Trey Seltzer. The search ended just 24 hours later when he was found hiding out at a friend's house. He was arrested and charged with the murders of his family members.
Good evening, friends. I'm Dave Ward.
I'm Adelia Cheetah in for Gina Gaston. Investigators say under questioning, Sessler admitted to committing several crimes.
While being held by police, Trey admitted that he had plans to carry out even more violent deeds, including shooting up a school with the intention of killing as many as 70 people. He said the only reason he killed his family first was so they would never know the person he would become, or have to carry the guilt associated with his actions. While in questioning, police said that Trey's mood fluctuated rapidly. Sometimes it was as if he had no remorse for what he had done, while other times he became emotional and overwhelmed.
I fire about 4 times, and I don't know where she gets hit, but I know it's somewhere in the torso area. They were the first immediate human targets in my sight. And if I was going to go out and do anything, they would have to go.
The second that Trey shot his mother, he regretted it. But at that point, he didn't feel like there was any turning back.
Can't really go to my brother and my dad and be like, yeah, I just killed our mom. Right after I had killed the family, it was on my mind to do that.
At this point, he was talking about his plan to shoot up the school. The plan was for it to be like the Columbine shooting, something that he was strangely infatuated with. But in the time it took for him to get to the school, the reality of what he had just done had sunk in. It all felt too real to him.
And I'm like, there's my opportunity. Go ahead, go get him. I don't think a period of 2 or 3 days ever went by that I didn't think about some sort of a violent act. I don't know, maybe it was just what happened was too real.
Many people believe that because of how horrific Trey's actions were that he would be sentenced to death. But instead, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There were rumors passed through the internet that suggested Trey was killed in prison, but those have since been discredited, which means that he remains behind bars to this day. What do you think caused Trey to snap and become the monster he turned out to be? Let us know in the comments.
We are learning more this morning about the social media star now accused of murdering her boyfriend. She was arrested in Hawaii, and now authorities are releasing new video evidence in the case.
The person in this picture is 26-year-old Courtney Cleany from Austin, Texas. She goes by Courtney Taylor on social media. She's a well-known model, Instagram star, and rose to fame through her work with the platform OnlyFans. When you look at her Instagram, you see someone who seemingly has what a lot of people dream of. She's got great beauty, money, and the ability to travel around the world. Not to mention, she has 2 million followers on the platform and countless sponsorships with brands, allowing her to expand her net worth. It may seem like Courtney Cleany had it all, but her life took a drastic turn on April 3rd of 2022. During an argument with her longtime boyfriend, Christian Ombumseli, she ended up fatally killing him by throwing a kitchen knife at him. It wasn't until August of 22 that she was arrested. Now she sits behind bars after being charged with his murder. She claims that everything she did was in self-defense, but is that the truth?
Ms. Cleany, how old are you?
I'm 26.
This morning, social media personality and OnlyFans model Courtney Cleany, also known as Courtney Taylor, has made her first court appearance in Hawaii after being charged in the murder of her boyfriend. Investigators releasing this video from earlier this year. They say it shows Cleany repeatedly punching boyfriend Christian Ombumseli inside a private elevator in their Miami high-rise.
The video shows Courtney entering the elevator just moments before Christian. She hits buttons repeatedly before angrily turning her anger to Christian. From the second he enters the elevator, she is constantly hitting him on his back, shoulders, and head. He does not fight back and attempts to use the touchscreen inside the elevator to activate it. All of this is happening before the elevator doors even have a chance to close, showing just how brazen Courtney is, since anyone walking by would clearly see what was going on. Several times she tries to pull his hair and punch him in the face. The attack goes on for nearly a minute before the elevator doors finally open again and they both exit the elevator. Courtney is still trying to land punches as they walk away. It was only weeks after this incident that the fatal stabbing would occur. After allegedly stabbing Christian, Courtney would call 911. During the call, you can reportedly hear Christian dying in the background.
911, what's your emergency?
Catherine Fernandez Rundell from the state attorney's office made it clear that all forms of domestic violence should be taken seriously. When you look at Christian, a big man who towered over Courtney, it's easy to assume that he was the abuser, and not the other way around. That's why the video evidence from the elevator is so critical in this case.
On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying and he was losing feeling in his arm. Defendant Cleany is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby."
Christian and Courtney were known for having a tumultuous relationship. Police had been called on them numerous times, and both of them had been accused of domestic violence in the past. The neighbors in their high-rise apartment often reported the pair's terrible fights.
Authorities say the staff at the couple's building documented so many loud arguments, they were taking steps to evict them.
Courtney's side of the story is that she only threw the knife because she was in fear for her life, and said that Christian had shoved her against the wall by the neck and then pushed her to the floor. But the police didn't buy this at all. When they arrived at the scene of the crime, Courtney had no visible injuries at all.
Cleany has waived her right to an extradition from Hawaii, meaning she'll now return to Florida to fight the murder charge.
Courtney was sent back to Florida, where she appeared in court again, this time for a bond hearing. She was seen wearing a protective vest, which is possibly because she threatened to harm herself. In court, Courtney's attorney claimed that there was no probable cause to charge Courtney with second-degree murder.
I just feel it's important that the court be made aware that that warrant that Judge Dello signed, I do find that he did find probable cause. However, there's not probable cause for second-degree murder, Judge. At best, it's manslaughter.
He also claimed that the statement that Courtney had no injuries as a result of how Christian was treating her was also untrue.
The detective also indicated there's no signs of bruising that were consistent with Miss Clenny. I was at the homicide unit and I have photographs of her bruising.
I have reached out to Clenny's lawyer to see the evidence they're claiming they have, but have yet to hear back.
The judge ultimately decided that she was not the right person to preside over the case.
I don't want to make any sort of ruling and then jeopardize whatever right for review you'd have in front of a judge who may be more familiar with the facts of the case.
I understand, Your Honor.
For all those reasons, I'm going to abstain at this moment from interjecting my opinion and allow this case to be reset in front of the judge who's going to be handling the case.
Christian's family had been vocal about their fight for justice. Karen Ugbuana, one of Christian's close family members, addressed the press.
Devastation doesn't quite describe what my family's experiencing right now. Yesterday, we finally told our 93-year-old grandmother that her grandson, who was expected to come home to Texas to visit for his 28th birthday, will no longer or ever be returning home. We have not had an opportunity to even start to grieve the loss of our family, of our brother, cousin, son.
Meanwhile, Courtney's attorney released a statement claiming that the truth about what really happened the night of the stabbing will come to light through court.
Clearly, none of this was intended, and Courtney is struggling mentally with the aftermath of what occurred that evening. This is a tragedy for all involved, but it was not criminal conduct. Courtney was defending herself, and the investigation will reveal exactly that.
While the trial has not yet begun, in the court of public opinion, Courtney's not looking very good. This is clear from a TikTok video that was captured prior to her arrest in Hawaii. She was at a hotel bar when she was recognized by hotel guests, and they didn't hold back from confronting her. Courtney can be seen angrily leaving the bar alongside an older man after several different people confronted her.
I'll videotape her. Right now, you should go. Yeah, you should go. You just know my boyfriend. Yeah, you did.
A woman who is recording the interaction tells her. It wasn't until Courtney was just outside the bar that she responded to the woman saying,
He's fighting. Yeah, okay, cool.
The woman responds sarcastically, clearly not believing her. The older man with Courtney can be heard mumbling something about finding a manager, supposedly to try to get these people in trouble. As of August 30th, 2022, Courtney remains behind bars and is being held without bail. Her fate is still yet to be determined, but her trial comes in only a matter of time. If she is found guilty, she could end up spending the rest of her life in prison, never returning to the luxurious life she once lived. Do you think Courtney Clenny is guilty? Let us know what you think in the comments.
Randy Stair. He's obsessed with two things not often found together, the cartoon Danny Phantom and Columbine.
There were a lot of red flags about Randy that probably should have caused others to worry. But these signs were overlooked, allowing him to become an actual monster. Randy Stair was known online under the pseudonym Andrew Blaze. Randy made a lot of bizarre videos which he uploaded to the internet, including this one where he wears a noose around his neck. The videos leading up to the day where he would massacre actually contain clues hinting towards what he was planning to do. But these clues were either overlooked by his followers or they simply thought that he was messing around. Randy started YouTube in 2008 and his channel was called Pioneer Productions. His content started out mostly normal. It included reactions to video games and different skits. But his content started to get stranger the more his addiction to Danny Phantom grew. You see, he was actually obsessed over the character Ember McLean.
Like if you look on the poster behind me, those were inspired by Ember McLean, which is a ghost from a TV show called Danny Phantom, which started back in 2003, 2004. You know, I was in late elementary school at that time. But this ghost, this woman always connected with me. But ever since I first saw her, something changed. And it wasn't like I grew up or anything like that. Like I realized, oh my gosh, I'm attracted to girls and all this. No, it just, something changed. It was like a spark.
Randy was so obsessed with this character that he even made his own spin-off characters and put stickers of them on his car. His childhood all the way into high school wasn't easy. He had trouble making friends and often thought about death. He even wrote stories where the characters died horrible deaths and then turned them in as assignments. His teachers never suspected anything.
I must have wrote like 4 or 5 stories where the character got killed at the end.
As Randy got older, he became a darker and darker individual.
And high school, I was that typical jaded teenager, just don't want to be here, don't want to do anything. I'm bored with my life.
And then something would happen to him that would change his life forever. His brother's best friend died in a car crash.
Dead on arrival at the hospital. And that was the first time I got messed up.
Randy's passion was YouTube, but it wasn't enough to support him financially, so he had to take a job at a local supermarket. A job he hated. And in September 2017, he decided to take things into his own hands.
Every day I have to make count. This is it. Just under 2 weeks to live.
Randy's mind had become so incredibly twisted that he believed that if he took his own life, he would come back as one of his fictional characters. He was planning to massacre as many people as he could and then himself. He just needed to pick the road through his YouTube channel. He wondered how big of an impact it was going to make, how much it would be covered in the news, and how many people would die. He decided that he would live stream the slaying on Facebook for others to view. Randy's final video would be released just 4 days before the massacre occurred.
What happened? What the happened, man? This is surreal right now, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this is going to be my last video. I don't know what will happen to my channels after this. I don't know what people are going to think of me after this.
While filming this video, Randy was parked outside of the supermarket where he planned for the massacre to take place. He watched the staff members going in and out and thought about how their lives would soon change forever.
4 more nights, your whole lives are going to be turned upside down because of me. I'm going to f your life up. I can't wait.
He then went on a strange, nonsensical rant in which he talked about how there were other dimensions besides Earth and that when this was all over, he would come back as one of his characters and would laugh at everyone who doubted him.
I sit here and I ask myself, would I do it all over again if I could? I'm going to be dead before next week ends. I'll be dead. Legit dead. This is it. So okay, I'll miss you guys. I'll miss you a lot. Some of you maybe I'll see on the other side. This is Andrew Blaze signing off for the last time. Enjoy the rest of your lives. Andrew, out.
Early on June 7th, Randy posted a strange video of him walking through the supermarket, seeming to plan out his attack. This is the place where he worked for 7 years that would soon become a horrific crime scene. On the night before the attack, Randy records a video of him loading 2 shotguns and packing them into a duffel bag. Both of these weapons he named.
I gave them names. The first one I bought, I called Rachel, and then I called the smaller one Mackenzie, after Mackenzie West.
He said, referring to a fictional character. Like Eric, the shooter from Columbine, Randy etched these names into the guns. The next day at the Weis supermarket, 24-year-old Randy was working the night shift. He and his co-workers were in the process of preparing to close for the night and were stocking shelves. Randy slipped away while nobody was looking and began barricading the doors so no one could leave. He calmly took videos of the setup on his phone. At around 1 a.m., Randy bursts through the back doors of the store, locks the doors behind him, and makes his way to the front. He then takes his guns out of the duffel bag and calmly makes his way through the store. There are 4 employees, Victoria, Kristen, Brian, and Terry. Randy shoots Victoria first and then passes by Kristen, who reportedly had headphones in and didn't hear the gunfire. Strangely, he decides not to shoot her. He goes on to kill both Brian and Terry. When Kristen realizes what's going on, she calls 911 and manages to run away from Randy. She gets to an exit only to find it blocked. She uses her shoulder to force it open and takes off running through the parking lot and up a nearby hill. Back in the store, Randy continuously shoots merchandise to try to destroy the entire supermarket. Then, after shooting 59 bullets, Randy decides that it's time to take his own life. He then shot and killed himself. Police determined that Randy was struggling not only with his sexual identity, but was a narcissist whose mental state was declining before his death. If someone had taken the time to notice the many warning signs, not only from Randy's childhood, but leading up to the murders, could this have been prevented? Maybe. Instead, his life ended in tragedy.
I died for the first time on the 18th of August, 2006. It wasn't a particularly pleasant death, nor was it one that I expected. It was simply the random act of violence that destroyed my life, and it came out of nowhere. We were just relaxing at the pub, enjoying a few drinks after a busy day at work. It was my turn to buy a round of drinks, so I was trying to get the attention of the bartender. I felt someone punch me in the side. At first, I thought someone had just hit me, but then I felt the warmth and the rapid stream of blood pouring down my shirt. I realized then and there that I'd actually gotten stabbed. As far as I can remember, it wasn't even that painful. Still, my legs gave out under me and I collapsed to the floor. Even then, I worried about ruining my expensive suit, ignoring the fact that I might be dying. Oncoming death is funny like that. Everyone thinks they're the exception, that they'll get out from whatever horrible situation the universe has thrust upon them. At least, that's what I thought, as the life drained from my body. The world around me just faded to black, and before I knew it, I had just died. Then there was the void. At first, it was little more than darkness, only broken by weird shapes and colors in the distance. As I regained a sense of my surroundings, I was dragged toward a new world, one without pain, suffering, nor death. All there was were people on a journey to different destinations. Whether they had all died like myself, or if they weren't born yet, I didn't know. All I knew was that I wasn't afraid anymore. The worries, the anxiety, and all my fears had been left behind. A light appeared in the distance, endlessly far away. I knew that would be my final destination, my final purpose in the brief life I'd led. Unfortunately, I never managed to get that far. I was jolted awake in my own bed, soaking wet from sweat and shaking like a maniac. My hand reflexively clutched my side to cover up the wound I'd sustained, but it wasn't there anymore. In fact, I didn't have a single scratch on me. Had it all been a dream? My phone lit up on the bedside table. I picked it up to find dozens of text messages and missed calls.
Hey man, we're at the pub. You coming or what?
The first message read, sent at 9:43 p.m.
Hey Rick, where the hell are you?
The second message said, sent at 10:23 p.m. Then there were a couple of phone calls and another message.
I guess you fell asleep, or maybe you're getting lucky. Whatever, I'll buy another shot in your honor. Happy birthday, Rick.
Then I had over 20 phone calls and a singular message that sent shivers down my spine.
For fuck's sake, pick up the damn phone. Something happened to Danny.
I immediately called back. My fingers were trembling from both anticipation and from the memory of what had happened only a night ago. Even if my death had been little more than a nightmare, I knew for sure I'd met up with my friends at the pub. The phone rang 3 times, then Jake picked up.
Rick, is that you? Where the hell are you?
Jake asked in a panicked, tired voice. I don't know what happened. I guess I fell asleep? I half asked, half stated.
Danny got stabbed last night,
Jake said without listening to my explanation. Stabbed? How?
I don't know. Some nutjob just walked up to him and stabbed him in the side.
I almost dropped my phone in shock. Danny had been attacked just like myself, in the exact same place. 1,000 thoughts rushed through my mind, but worry quickly became my main concern. Is he all right?
He's still in surgery. They're only letting his wife know about... Oh, wait, here she comes.
Jake put his phone down, but I could still hear the muffled sound of their discussion. Danny's wife seemed upset, but I couldn't make out the words. Jake? I asked.
He's dead. Danny's dead.
The next few moments turned into a blurry haze of information. We'd all known Danny since we were kids, and now he was just gone. The murderer never even made it out from the pub. Apparently he got shot by one of the patrons as he tried to attack another guest. Still, I just couldn't shake the feeling that I was supposed to die that night. Regardless of what happened, time marched on without answers. Some of our coworkers quit after Danny's death, trying to hopelessly move on. I didn't blame them. I also needed some distance. I never even told them what I'd experienced that night. it wouldn't have helped them anyway. A year passed, and I hardly spoke to any of my friends. I started to get some semblance of normalcy in the wake of Danny's death, but that would all come to an end on the 18th of August, 2007. By the time day had given way to night, I'd almost finished the bottle. Even as a rather large guy, the alcohol had hit me hard. At around 9 o'clock, I just passed out in bed, awaiting a horrible hangover in the morning. I only awoke around midnight when I heard the front door forcefully break open, followed by footsteps and whispers. I tried to get up, still drowsy from alcohol. As I took one step out from my bed, I slipped and came tumbling down to the floor. I produced a massive crash, loud enough to alert whichever intruders had broken in.
"I thought you said no one would be home,"
a man stated angrily.
"Don't worry about it, I'll go deal with it."
The footsteps moved quickly in my direction. I tried to lock the door, but they were too fast, kicking it open and knocking me back to the ground. A masked man entered my room, holding onto a gun. He only spoke a single sentence to me before pointing the weapon at me and pulling the trigger.
"You should have stayed quiet."
Unfortunately, the man had a horrible shot. He aimed at my head, but it hit me in the throat instead. There I lay, drowning in my own blood as I desperately gasped for air. I couldn't crawl away, and I couldn't call for help. I died on my bedroom floor, on my own birthday, just as I had a year earlier. Once life finally drained from my body and the god-awful pain ceased, I was back in the world beyond. I walked through the same colorful dimension that lay just on the edge of life. I admired the shapes and colors as they passed. In the distance, I saw a tree with branches stretching endlessly far from its trunk. From each branch dangled a person, real but not existing in our world. I wanted to visit them, but that wasn't my destination, because just like before, I would wake up in my own bed, unharmed by the events from the previous night. My phone buzzed, and I was filled with an unfathomable dread. I still couldn't quite believe it, but I started to understand that someone would take my place in death.
"Hello?
Rick, it's Dad. Your mother, she passed away last night."
A lump formed in my throat. I knew what was coming next, but I had to ask. How? What happened?
The police say it was a burglary gone wrong. I don't know. I was working late. I should have been there.
The discussion trailed off from there. My dad was distraught and could barely form coherent sentences. He blamed himself for not being there, but I knew the truth. It was my fault. During the next 2 months, he fell into deep depression. I couldn't blame him. He just lost the love of his life. I moved in with him just to help him pick up the pieces. He put on a strong face, trying his best to keep the ship afloat, but I could tell how close he was to just breaking down.
If only I'd been there.
"It wasn't your fault, Dad. Had you been there, you might be gone too."
You don't know that.
But I did know, because the burglars weren't ever supposed to visit my parents' house. They were supposed to kill me. I had to come clean. I had to let him know the truth, but how could I? Half a year passed, and the secret ate at me. After everything that had happened, I still didn't know how to explain it. Still, I decided it was time to share my curse.
"Dad, can we talk?"
Yeah, what's going on?
He asked with a worried expression on his face. He knew me well, and he could tell a heavy burden was weighing me down. I started by telling him about my first death, down to the smallest detail. Of course, it matched everything that the people had witnessed in the pub that night, even the location of the stab wound. I told him Danny had taken my place in death and that I felt guilty. Naturally, he was skeptical at first, but then I told him about my mother. I didn't spare him any details. I told him where I'd gotten shot, that the door had been broken down, and that there were 2 robbers. Every detail matched perfectly down to the letter.
I'm so sorry, Dad. It was my fault. I killed her."
He just sat there in silence, processing what I'd just told him.
It wasn't your fault.
I was confused. There wasn't a single ounce of anger on his words, only overwhelming empathy.
How can you say that? She didn't have to die."
He mulled over his next words carefully before speaking.
You didn't do anything wrong, Rick. You just went about your life, and these things happened to you. I don't know why you've been brought back, or even how, but you're not to blame for what is done to you.
So, you believe me? I asked. He nodded and embraced me in a hug. Suddenly, I wasn't alone in the world anymore. Someone knew what was happening to me. What if it happens again?
Then we'll get through it together.
He stood by these words, even as my next birthday rolled around. That death was more tame. I slipped in the shower and broke my neck. The last thought that went through my mind as I left the world for the third time was, how cliché. Once again, I awoke in my bed. I called out for my dad, making sure he was still alive, horrified that he might have taken my place. I couldn't even breathe until he came rushing to my side, asking what had happened. I broke my neck, but I'm fine, I think. It took a while before I figured out who had taken my place that time. But once I heard that my boss had died, something broke inside of me. He was the kindest man I'd ever met. And just like myself, he'd slipped and broken his neck. That was the final straw. It wasn't some bizarre coincidence I could brush off, nor a premonition. I decided then and there that I couldn't live with the responsibility. I had to put a stop to it, even if it meant giving up my own life. I figured that if I took control over my own fate and killed myself outside my own birthday, maybe I could prevent more people from dying. First, I left behind a long letter to my father, explaining why I'd chosen to leave. I couldn't face him in person. I knew he'd just try to talk me out of it, but it was something I had to do. I couldn't allow any more people to die on my behalf. Alas, fate is a fickle bitch. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't end my own life. I tried hanging, but the rope broke. Then I tried to shoot myself, but the gun jammed. When that failed, I tried to drive my car into a tree, but somehow I survived that as well. Any attempt was met with failure. All I could do was wait for my next birthday and let someone die in my place. No matter how many times I tried, I couldn't die. I was a slave to destiny, and it was destroying me. In 2009, I was hit by a drunk driver, and my girlfriend took my place. In 2010, I drowned, and my kind neighbor had to go through that death. In 2011, I died from a brain aneurysm, which ended up killing my aunt. And so on and so on. Each year I'd die and a person close to me would take my place. I kept trying to find a way out, but fate wouldn't have it. Years went by, and on the 18th of August 2019, I would die for the 14th time. I'd already fallen sick a week earlier, much to the doctor's confusion. According to each and every laboratory value, I was fine, yet I kept getting sicker. My father and I both knew my time was near, but we also knew I'd be forcefully brought back. Then, at midnight on my birthday, my heart just gave out. I was jolted awake in my own bed, and the sickness was little more than a distant memory. "Dad?" I called out. No response. I got out of bed and called his name again. I was met with silence. I didn't have to call a third time. I already knew what had happened. I carefully walked into his room, horrified at what I knew would come. He was dead, just gone from a heart attack. He'd taken my place, and I could do nothing to save him. The funeral came and went in a blur. The only noticeable thing was the missing seats from the people who had passed before him. Some of them had lived their own lives and died as nature intended, but a number of them were supposed to live on. Instead, they'd just taken my place in death. I inherited a number of things from my father. Among them, I found a letter addressed to me. It looked rather worn, so I could tell he'd written it a long time ago.
Dear Richard, today is your birthday, and it has officially been a year since your mother passed. While I miss her greatly, I'm thankful to still have you around. I know that if she was given the choice, she would want you to live. I feel the same way. We both know that I might one day take your place in death. Never doubt that I would happily give my life if it means that you may live. You didn't choose this curse. So never blame yourself. Just do what every person is supposed to. Appreciate the people around you, because you never know what day might be their last. I love you, Dad.
Since I read that letter, I've been looking for a way out. My father might want to stay behind, but how can I live on, knowing that I'm taking someone's place? I've long since left town, living by myself in a cabin somewhere away from people. Hopefully, if I have no one left that cares about me, people will stop dying. At least until I can figure out not only how to die, but how to actually stay dead. I'm sorry.